try something different, because what we're trying right now is the definition of insanity. And this Cubs fan right here, I think speaks for a lot of you Cubs fans out there right now. I'm tired of it. I'm not having fun watching these games. How bad is this Cubs offense? Well, after a 5-1 loss to the Brewers and being held to 5 hits or less, that is the 13th time in their last 28 games that they've had 5 hits or less. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Let's talk about it right now here on the Setup Man. Setup Nation, Cubs fans, happy Memorial Day. I wish I was coming in with better news. But unfortunately, as soon as the third inning was hitting in this game, you just kind of knew that the Cubs were losing this game. And unfortunately as well, this is the same feeling that you had back in May of 2023. This is all too familiar. This is just kind of a broken record. And by the way, I'm about to share a stat with you that is going to make all the sense in the world for you of why this feels like a broken record. And I'm going to have some comments. I'm going to have some opinions. You're going to probably have some opinions. They may align with mine. They may not align with mine. Either way, if you like this video, go ahead and like it. If you also doubly like it, make sure you subscribe. And if you don't, make sure you comment. Let's get in the comments. Let's talk about this game, because by the end of the day, we're all Cubs fans and we need to vent, because this team is vent worthy. Here's the stat. The Cubs are hitting under 210, and this is the 51st time since 2020 that the Cubs have had a 30-game span of hitting under 210. 51st time. Let that sink in for a second. All right. Now, when you look at StatHead, if you go look this up, you'll find the same thing. If you look at StatHead, it'll consider game 1 through 30. That's a 30-game span. If you then have game 2 through 31, that's also a 30-game span. So it could bleed over each other. I need you to understand that. So it's not 30 games and 30 games and 30 games. It can bleed over each other. But 51 different 30-game spans of hitting under 210 as a team since 2020. When's the last time that happened for the Cubs? 1969 was the last time before 2020 that the Cubs hit under 210 as a team in 30 games. Now, you could look at that and you could say, well, that's a sign of the times, Kyle. That's a completely different look at here. You've got velocity, you've got nasty pitches, you've got guys that are coming in. Look at the last, whatever it is now, 17, 18 games that the Cubs have had in terms of great starting pitching. Aside from Miles Michaelis, who somehow still looked like a great starting pitcher. I'm done with that argument. At the end of the day, are we not trying to win a World Series? I'm tired of looking at this team and saying, well, hey, they got in last night and they ended a game that was late in St. Louis, and they didn't even end it till midnight. And then they got to get on a plane and they got to have a 3 p.m. game in Milwaukee. Guess what? That's what happens in a 162 game season. And yes, that sucks. And yes, I've never had to do that. And yes, I've never played 162 games. And kudos to any baseball player who has played 162 games. It's amazing. But I am not going to make excuses for this team when they can't even fully healthy, fully fresh hit a starting pitcher, especially one that is making his, 4th career start. I'm done making excuses for this team. This organization doesn't know how to put a lineup together that can go out there and compete against major league starting pitching. Let's just talk for a second about today alone. 5 for 31, 0 extra base hits, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts. The day before, when Ian Happ alone carried this offense to 3 runs on 2 home runs, that's the only 2 home runs that the Cubs have hit in their last 8 games. Ian Happ has provided the last 2 home runs in the last 8 games for this team. Yet for some reason, we are putting Nick Madrigal out there in a starting lineup that is struggling to score runs. Nick Madrigal stole at bats today from Mike Tauchman, the best hitter on this team. I'm not talking about my feelings. I'm talking about stats. He has the highest OPS on this team. He stole at bats from the second leading home run hitter on this team. I don't care what he's done in the last few months here, or a few weeks, I should say here. Michael Busch is the second most home runs on this team. Nick Madrigal stole those at bats. Why? Because he's supposed to be a defensive improvement from Christopher Morel makes the most crucial error of the game that you could argue that Morel would have made that play. You could argue that Patrick Wisdom would have made that play. We're all humans, right? We don't know what would have happened. However, I do know Nick Madrigal doesn't belong on a major league roster. Not just the Cubs major league roster, a major league roster. Maybe he belongs on a Miami Marlins team. Maybe he belongs on a Colorado Rockies team. Maybe he belongs on a Oakland A's team. This is not those teams. This is the Chicago Cubs, who have a payroll that was supposed to be getting close to the luxury tax. It has, and is still at 500 through 54 games. Excuse me if I'm ranting a little bit, but I think we're all frustrated at this point. This is one of the worst stretches I've seen. But then when you look at the 20 and 21 numbers and you say, wow, it might have actually been worse then. Well, guess what? Those teams were rebuilding. Yeah, 2020, you could argue, was a playoff season, but we all know when we went back to that season that all of those players were on the decline. And this was at that point, the start of probably what was going to be a rebuild. And in 2021, you saw a rebuild. This is not supposed to be a rebuild. This is 2024. This is supposed to be a team that is supposed to be capturing the NL Central, and a very weak NL Central. And now they're 4.5 games behind first place on Memorial Day. So how do we fix this? Like, how does Craig Counsell, Jed Hoyer, how does anyone fix this? This team is, I don't want to put words in their mouths because I don't know if they're comfortable. I don't know if they had some bad sushi a week ago and it's still in their stomach. I don't know what the situation is, but I do know that if this is what we're getting is a 500 team, then why the hell not are we playing Owen Casey and PCA and bringing up Cade Horton and trying out David Bodie? Try something different, because what we're trying right now is the definition of insanity. And this Cubs fan right here, I think, speaks for a lot of you Cubs fans out there right now. I'm tired of it. I'm not having fun watching these games. And I'm going to get off my pedestal, my piss pot, all these things, because you know what? At the end of the day, my opinion doesn't really matter. But hey, as always, we want to end with something positive here. And how about Justin Steele? If the Cubs are going to be serious about contending, they need to have Justin Steele pitching like the ace that he was last year. And he did just that for the Cubs in 7 innings, 3 hits, no earned runs, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk. Deserved a win against the Brewers. And unfortunately, did not even get close to that because the Cubs did not score a single run. But if he keeps on putting up starts like this, then guess what? This was unfortunately the 10th straight loss in Justin Steele's starts for the Cubs. But you see starts like this from Justin Steele, that's going to turn the other side around, and suddenly you're going to see 10 wins in a row for the Cubs in Justin Steele starts. And guess what? It does not get any better tomorrow, because Ben Brown is going to be going up against Freddie Peralta, who has always given the Cubs headaches. Against the Cubs, he is 5-2 with a 3.50 ERA. That spans over 64 1/3 innings, where he has struck out 90. That's right, 64 1/3 innings, 90 strikeouts. Freddie Peralta, no fan of the Cubs. So even if Ben Brown can lock it down, doesn't mean jack squat, as you saw against Justin Steele today, because the Cubs offense did not come to play. So hopefully the exact opposite for Ben Brown tomorrow. Cubs fans, I'm really wishing for the best. I hope that this team can turn it around. Right now it is bleak times, but we can rally together. We can bring in some encouragement. We can bring in some positive thoughts. So let's do that. Let's go see the Cubs get on a streak now of winning, and they have their own destiny in their hands. If they can win the next 3 games, then you have only 1.5 game lead in the Central, and the Cubs looking like they're storming back. So let's see that happen in the next 3 days. I'm going to go put my arm on ice. We'll see you next time, Setup Nation.